There are many mysteries in the world, unsolved cases of paranormal phenomena, and even more unsolved true crime cases. A lot of them are incredibly popular, regularly being covered and even having movies made about them. For today's video, we wanted to explore 4 lesser known, lesser talked about mysteries of the world. Black-eyed children, or black-eyed kids, are said to be paranormal creatures that resemble children between the ages of 6 and 16, with pale skin and black eyes, who are reportedly seen hitchhiking or begging, or are encountered on doorsteps of residential homes and other places. It's said that they noticeably look like they might be wearing makeup, or like someone had sprayed them with the wrong color tanning spray, as if they were another creature trying to make themselves look like human children, but just couldn't get it right. The most common theme with black-eyed kids is that they're always encountered as asking for permission to come into the home, or the vehicle, or whatever of the supposed victim, instead of just barging right in and attacking, or whatever they do. This is very akin to the tale of the vampires in that they need to be invited in and can't just come in of their own volition. Part cryptid, part alien, part demon, part ghost, part vampire, and part urban legend. No one's entirely sure what exactly to make of the black-eyed kids, but one thing's for sure is the tales and encounters with these beings are haunting. At the very least, there are thousands of individual people who say they've had an encounter with black-eyed children in one way or another. Black-eyed kids seem to just be off, generally in more ways than one. An example of this would be one account taking place in the early 2000s where a group of black-eyed kids showed up to a doorstep claiming to be selling magazines. However, the magazines were decades and decades old and out of print. These beings are said to never answer any questions you have for them, instead repeating phrases and strange things in a low-level, droning monotone over and over. Oftentimes, black-eyed kids are said to smell like rotten eggs, rotten meat, or even rotting garbage, and an overwhelming sense of nausea and migraines plague the would-be victims for days and days. Perhaps the most famous or infamous story of a reported sighting was back in 1996 by Brian Bethel, a journalist from Abilene, Texas. In Bethel's report, he describes a late evening out in his vehicle. He had stopped in a parking lot near a movie theater to write a check. He was so absorbed in this that he didn't notice 2 young boys approaching his car. He didn't notice until the older boy tapped the driver's side window. When he rolled down his window, he noted immediately a soul-racking fear, and he couldn't understand why. The older boy said that he and his brother wanted to catch a movie but had forgotten their money at home, asking if Bethel could give them a ride. They assured him that it wouldn't take long, they were just 2 kids, and that they didn't have a gun. Bethel found the assurances unnerving and noted that the last showing of the film they wanted to see had already started and would be nearly over by the time he could drive them anywhere and get back. In his recount of the incident, he stated that when he broke eye contact with them, his fear became all-encompassing. And it wasn't until he broke eye contact that their eyes became completely blacked out. The older boy began to get frustrated with Bethel when he made excuses for not giving them a ride and said that they couldn't get into the car unless Bethel said it was okay. After that, Bethel tore out of the parking lot. To this day, he still stands by his story, still retelling it exactly as he did on the very first day. No information changed at all. I'm sure many of you know who Edgar Allan Poe is, and more so that obviously he's not around anymore. But what not a lot of people know is that his death is still a mystery and a thing of great argument and debate to this day. On October 3rd, 1849, Joseph W. Walker was heading out to Gunner's Hall, a public house bustling with activity. When Walker arrived at Gunner's Hall, he found a delirious man dressed in dirty clothing lying in the gutter. The man was semi-conscious and unable to move. As Walker approached him, he discovered the man was Edgar Allan Poe. On September 27th, almost a week earlier, Poe had left Richmond, Virginia, bound for Philadelphia to edit a collection of poems. When Walker found Poe in such a delirious state outside of the polling place, it was the first anyone had heard or seen of him since he left Richmond. Poe never made it to Philadelphia, nor did he ever make it back to New York. Poe never made it out of Baltimore, and in the 4 days between Walker finding Poe outside the public house and his death on October 7th, he never regained enough consciousness to explain how he had come to be found in soiled clothing that didn't belong to him, rambling and incoherent on the streets. Instead, Poe spent his final days stumbling between fits of delirium and visual hallucinations. The night before his death, according to his attending physician Dr. John J. Moran, Poe repeatedly called out for Reynolds, a figure who, to this day, remains a mystery. Though his death certificate listed the cause of death as swelling of the brain, the mysterious circumstances surrounding his death have led many to speculate about the true cause of Poe's demise. There are many theories, including those such as an awful beating, alcohol withdrawals, carbon monoxide poisoning, rabies, and of course the most commonly accepted theory, a victim of cooping. Cooping is a method of voter fraud practiced by gangs in the 19th century where an unsuspecting victim would be kidnapped, disguised, and forced to vote for a specific candidate multiple times under multiple disguised identities. Voter fraud was extremely common in Baltimore around the mid-1800s, and the polling site where Walker found Poe was a known place that coopers brought their victims. The fact that Poe was found delirious on Election Day wouldn't be a coincidence in this case. This third one is a little bit more lighthearted and feels like more of a jokey legend you'd tell your friends in grade school. Nevertheless, it hasn't stopped it from being a local legend that continues to be passed down to further generations. Folklore says that Haunchies are a band of little people, or elves or dwarves, goblins, etc., depending upon who's telling the story, who ran off to Muskego after their days in the circus were over. They're said to live in a tiny village in the woods or a cornfield on Mystic Drive, and do not like to be bothered. Supposedly, they are guarded by an old man with a shotgun, and are also armed with various other blunt weapons. Legend says if they catch you, they'll cut you off at the knees so you'll be left not only mangled, but being as short as they are. Many have tried to capture or photograph a Haunchie, but so far the evidence is as elusive as Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. The hunt to find Haunchieville is still a yearly event in some younger teenage circles today, and can even land you with a large fine if you're found trespassing in one of these hunts by local law enforcement. It is sort of a silly, for lack of a better word, tale, but it doesn't stop the fact that the hunt for Haunchieville goes on yearly to this day. I'm sure we don't have to tell you that there's absolutely no shortage of poltergeist activity and haunting stories in the world, especially the more famous cases such as Amityville. But there's one in particular that sticks out for us because it was covered on TV in a news report and then seemingly just immediately forgotten about. In 1965, on Rhondda Street in Swansea, Wales, one family was forced to flee their home in terror as a poltergeist was said to have been throwing the furniture around and even trying to attack or kill their small child. Mrs. Howell, the resident seen in this interview, was quoted as saying, "It couldn't be anything human." The reports prompted a flurry of activity. Marcia Howell contacted Father Martin Griffin of St. David's Roman Catholic Church in Swansea to come and bless the house. She moved out with her family, vowing they would never return, even if she was paid to. Now, what's odd to us is obviously one of the main theories is that she made it up and did it herself to get some sort of fame or airtime. However, in the interview, she is seemingly so sincere and freaked out, worried for the health and safety of her family, that we just don't see that. Furthermore, she moved away immediately, and any chance of fame coming from this was lost with them as they drove away.
Do you believe in ghosts? No? Well, perhaps not. But then, a week ago, neither did the Howells family, who lived in this house here in Rhondda Street in Swansea. I say lived, because so many strange and unexplained things have been happening in the house since Monday that the Howells have been forced to leave. The Howells, Marcia, aged 20, her 25-year-old husband David, and their 2 young children are convinced that the house has been invaded by a poltergeist. Mrs. Howells describes what happened on Monday afternoon.
Well, it was about 5 o'clock in the evening, and I just poured my little girl a cup of tea in my mother's room. I went out the back kitchen, and as I opened the door, this bottle came flying towards me. And of course I shut the door to protect myself. I opened it again and I seen this other bottle. So I just picked up the children and I ran out the house. As I ran out, my husband was coming down the street here, and he ran straight in the house, and by the time he got in there, all the place was turned upside down.
What sort of state was the kitchen?
It was terrible. The couch, the TV, everything just thrown in the middle of the room. The bedroom was all upside down. My little boy's cot was in underneath the bed. If he'd have been in it, he would have been killed. And I went clean down then, and we came out there and waited for my husband.
What was the state of the bedroom?
The bedroom was it was a terrible state. Everything, my tall boy, the bed, the cots, everything turned upside down. And well, even the police, they had to break into the bedroom before they got there.
You called in the police. What did they say?
Well, they haven't got any explanation for it at all, because as I said, it couldn't be nothing human, because how could it get out of the front bedroom down to the kitchen when the police had to break in?
We hope you liked this episode of the Next Files. It is a bit different, a change from what we'd normally do. If you liked it, please leave a like. It helps us out a lot. And if you want to see more videos like this, mysteries and things of the like, please subscribe, and thank you for watching.